Is this thing on? I think we're good to go. Hello everyone, I'm Lucy Hounsom. I'm the author of the Worldmaker Trilogy. First book is STARBORN, which was out a few years ago from Tor UK. I'm also one of the co-hosts of the intersectional feminist podcast, Breaking the Glass Slipper. I should say we're an award-winning podcast now, since we won a British Fantasy Award last year, which is completely awesome. I'm here today talking to you from my bedroom in Devon, where I live, and just to kind of fill you in on all of the activities I'm getting up to at the moment. So I'm lucky that not too much has changed for me in lockdown. I spend 5 days a week here writing books anyway, and the other 2 days I work for Waterstones in Exeter as a bookseller, and so I have really missed going in to see my colleagues and being in the shop. And the best thing about working kind of elsewhere and especially in a bookshop is that it gets me out of my own head. Gets me kind of out of the house, away from the book, which otherwise would kind of, I'd live in that book 24/7, which is probably a bad thing. So I am missing kind of getting out. I'm missing doing my yoga classes, my D&D, because we haven't managed to get an online group going yet. So hopefully that's something that we can look into in a bit. Come and say hello to everybody watching, Pushkin. This is my cat, Pushkin, who has written, helped me write all 4 of my books. She is very good at writing books, by which I mean sitting on my laptop when I'm trying to work. And also she's just desperate to get away because she can smell some food cooking downstairs and thinks there's something for her. So I will let her go. I usually sit and write here in my bedroom, on my bed, surrounded by owl cushions. This one's really creepy because it lost an eye. That's sometimes they fall on my head when I'm asleep and I wake up and just being confronted with my one-eyed friend here, just slightly daunting. But funny story, I really like these Sassenbell owls, and I just happened to mention to a couple of friends that I really like the owls, because clearly I am so difficult to buy for. There was a period of time when everyone bought me the owls, and I now have 5, which is slightly too many because my bed really isn't that big. I spend most of my time in my bedroom with the owls on my bed, which I think alarms my editor because I don't actually sit at my desk like a sensible person in an office chair. I use my office chair for gaming, but I just feel like I really need to chill and sit against a whole load of pillows, and that's how I usually write my first drafts. Editing, I generally go and do the serious part in the chair at the desk. It's very cozy in here, and this is where the magic happens. So what have I been up to writing-wise? Well, I'm waiting on my edits for Sister Song, which is my new historical kind of fantasy novel. Big departure from the Worldmaker Trilogy. It will be published next spring by Pan Macmillan, and it's set right here in Devon in about 535 AD. I wanted to kind of challenge myself a bit because I knew that writing another kind of trilogy, secondary world, quite classic fantasy, I've done that, and while I may well go back to writing those sort of books in the future, I just felt like I needed a break and a bit of fresh air and a new challenge, which was trying to kind of recreate a historical period which we don't really have very much information on. There are very few primary sources. So Sister Song is inspired by a murder ballad called The Twa Sisters, or The Two Sisters. which tells the story of how an elder sister, usually of a king or an important personage, pushes her younger sister into the river and refuses to help her unless the younger sister promises to yield up her true love to the elder sister. And of course the younger sister refuses to do this, so is swept away by the river. In some of these stories she turns into a swan. In others, and this is the one that really kind of piqued my interest, she washes up on a kind of riverbank, and a harper comes along, sees her dead body, and like most normal people, decides to carve it up and make it into a harp. And of course he takes the harp back to her father's court, and where it proceeds to tell the whole sordid tale of murder and betrayal. So I thought this was a really fascinating story, not least the bone harp part, which is so morbid and excellent, and I really wanted to write that bit. But what interested me the most is how on earth this could come about. I mean, how could two sisters who grow up together, how could the elder one do this? Surely it was provoked, or I mean, what happened? And I really just wanted to kind of explore the idea a bit further, and it's the first novel I've ever written that's been directly inspired by another piece of source material. So while it's definitely that this story is kind of at the heart, I hope that I have, by setting it in a historical time, I've kind of brought something new to the story. In some versions of the ballad, there are actually 3 sisters, or 3 children of the king. And this is the version that I heard first by Lorena McKennett, and her version is called Bonnie Swans. And but it's interesting because the 3rd child, the middle one, kind of disappears from the song, and that made me start to think, well, why is that the case? Why was that child kind of even mentioned at all? And it got me thinking about why some people might be erased from history, why some people might be erased from their own stories, and particularly a story that is so tropey. It comes from a time where women were forced into certain societal kind of roles of wives and mothers and good maidens who kept themselves chaste for their husbands, and I thought that it's something so strict would naturally have erased a person who did not fit into the bounds of that sort of story and that sort of society. So Sister Song is narrated by all 3 of the king's children, the eldest daughter, the youngest daughter, and their middle sibling, who I wanted to put this extra viewpoint in because the ballad is extremely prejudiced in favour of the youngest child, and I just felt that we needed some objectification in there to kind of dig down under the layers of this story and find out what really happened. So following on from wondering why certain people are erased from certain stories, are erased from history, I wanted to explore ideas of identity and gender in a restrictive historical society. So Keen, who is my protagonist and the middle child, was assigned female gender at birth but identifies as male. In a society which does not recognise this, and the word transgender didn't really exist in this culture, even though there were plenty of people around at the time who identified that way. And also because the ballad is such a strict, it's very restrictive. It puts women in either the role of jealous, evil sister, or you know, innocent, chaste, younger sister, young maiden. This is such a strict ballad, such a strict set of rules that I really wanted to restore the Keen's story. I wanted to kind of let him be able to create his own narrative alongside his sisters. So I better not say too much more about Sister Song. I don't want to spoil anything for you. But if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the book now, I'm kind of doing a series of posts over on Instagram, on which is my my Twitter handle. It's exactly the same. It's Sylvan Historian. And they give you a little bit more background about the novel, kind of everything from the historical period to the kind of religious tension that existed between paganism and kind of incoming Christianity. I've read some fabulous books recently, and I wouldn't be a bookseller if I didn't do a few recommends. So this book, if you can see it clearly, there we go. It's The Lost Future of Pepper Harrow by Natasha Pulley. It's just come out, so it would be lovely if you could support her, because obviously it's very difficult at the moment to be an author with a book out in lockdown. A lot of events have had to be cancelled, and it really is it's a wonderful book. It follows on from The Watchmaker of Filigree Street, if anyone's read that, which came out a few years ago, and it is amazing. It's beautifully atmospheric, and if you're a fan of Japan or turn of the century London, the ideas of like fin de siècle science kind of permeate the whole narrative as well. And Natasha was kind enough to come on Breaking the Glass Slipper. So I think by the time you see this video, the interview will already be out. And she came to talk to us about magical realism and the difference between, and whether there is a line, in fact, between what is real and what is fantasy. Also, I'm reading Circe currently by Madeleine Miller. I recently finished The Song of Achilles, which was amazing, and I'm very ashamed that it took me this long to actually read it. I'm really enjoying Circe. I've probably got about another 75 pages to go. I can really recommend that because it's a wonderful story of a woman born into a quite patriarchal, very patriarchal society, rather like Sister Song, and who, you know, slowly but surely begins to find her own strength and her own agency and begins to write her own narrative. I'd also like to recommend Trigonometry, which is the new novella from STARBORN, author of the infamous Nunslinger. Amazing punning titles there. But Trigonometry is now out as an ebook, and you can find it on Amazon, and you can find it on Stark's website. It's a really great book about kind of like mathematicians in a weird kind of old western. That sounds crazy, but it is really, really amazing, and you should totally go out and support the author in that as well. I guess what's left to say is please take care of yourselves. I know it's a really horrible time for everybody, and it's difficult to be inside and separated from you know, loved ones who are vulnerable and many, you know, could be miles away. So please, everybody, take care of yourselves. I hope that we'll come out the other side of this soon. And keep reading, keep talking about books, keep talking about science fiction and fantasy, which is like a wonderful genre and a wonderful community. And it's just a super relaxed fantasy club. It's super amazing. And I'm really looking forward to kind of getting back to some of their events when lockdown is lifted. If you're an author like me, they're doing a series of video posts like this one on their channel on YouTube. So totally get in touch with them, and I'd like to know what you're up to, and yeah, let me know on Twitter what everyone's doing these days. So this is Lucy signing off. See you around.